Good afternoon. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on April 23rd, 2025, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Karen Lattin, and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Xfinity Channel 1072 and is being recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It is being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. The agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review are posted on the town's website. To all participants, whether attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you have been recognized by the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you're attending by phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you're online and you're not a commissioner, please keep your camera turned off unless you've been recognized. Indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. So we have a record of quorum. I will now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Elise Gordon.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Cheryl Meservey.
Present.
Eric Hilbert.
Present.
Bob Delvecchio.
Present.
Paul Johnson.
Present.
And I'm here, so we have established we have a quorum. Before we begin, is there anyone who would like to make any announcements, comments, or future agenda items for anything other than the properties on the agenda today? You may comment on those properties when it's being heard. I don't see any raised hands. I will say I do have a comment. We seem to be getting a lot more applications that also have to go through ZBA, and they haven't filed yet. And technically, in our regulations, it says that you should have applied to ZBA when you put in your application with us. The reason this is important is that it delays our ability to act on the property. We have orders and we have to hold them until you've appeared before ZBA, and ZBA takes a bit longer than we do to hear the properties. So usually you would be heard by us before ZBA and would know if there are any changes that we require. So that's just a request to anyone listening or here. All right. And before we begin the agenda, Catherine, are there any announcements about any requests for continuances today?
There are 3 requests for continuances. Notice of intent application at 98 Oyster Pond Furlong. The applicant has requested a continuance to July 9, 2025. Notice of intent application at 186 Strong Island Road. The applicant has requested a continuance to May 14, 2025. Notice of intent at 32 Bog Way. The applicant has requested a continuance to July 9, 2025.
Great, thank you. At this point, Catherine Ricks, Chatham's Assistant Conservation Agent, will now lead us through the agenda.
First, we have a request for an order of conditions at 112 Independence Lane, map 13B, parcel DC5 for Scott and Inslee Copeland, Mass DEP SE 10 3727, construction of a barn and driveway expansion within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland.
How are you?
Good. David Clark, Clark Engineering on behalf of the Copelands. I think I see Mike on there from Blue Flags. I didn't have any issues with the order other than you got language in there about a coastal engineering structure. This is all inland wetlands. But I think Mike had a question regarding the demarcation of the mitigation area.
Okay.
Yes,
Mike?
hi. Oh, hello. Mike Tanis, Blue Flags Design. Special condition number 2, you talk about a permanently delineating the area. And I just wanted to clarify for our clients, in the past, that could be a single rail, split rail fence or steel edging. Both of those will work?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, anything that you want to add or modify?
I'm just looking at it. There's in standard condition A, preconditions number 5, agent will confirm that the trees flagged for removal have all been approved for removal. That's in red and bolded. Is that supposed to be in red and bolded to draw their attention to it?
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
I noticed it was in red, and I think it's to draw attention.
Okay. Just wondering whether it was draft or
Yeah, no,
deliberate. Okay.
nope, that was deliberate. Anybody else? Bob?
I have something very, very, very small.
Good.
The last sentence, in project and mitigation description, all roof runoff. I think there's supposed to be a hyphen between run and off.
Oh, okay. Anything else?
That's it, thank you.
Anybody?
There is now.
All right, then I think we can go to a motion.
I move that we close the hearing on 112 Independence Lane and approve the order of conditions as revised.
Second.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. So you're all set. Thank you.
Okay, got the next.
All right, the next, Catherine.
Okay, we have a request for amended order of conditions at 108 Beach Plum Road, map 4D, parcel 23, for R. Paul Detweiler, Mass DEP, SE 10 3674, demolish existing dwelling and cottage, construct new dwelling and cottage. Amendment is to move the cottage to the east and reconfigure the driveway, draft AOOC.
David Clark again.
Yes.
Clark Engineering. I'd like to thank you for not reinventing the wheel and keeping it to 3 pages. That was, that's the way it should be done. Thank you,
Thanks.
but no issues.
Good. Commissioners, anybody? Nothing? Okay, well, that was good.
Thank
I
you.
think we can go to a motion, please.
I move that we approve the amended order of conditions for 108 Beach Plum Road.
Second.
Bob?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Janet? Aye. Paul?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. So you're all set on that one. Okay, the next, Catherine.
We have a field change request at 34 Scattery Road, map 16I, parcel 32-2 for 34 Scattery Road Nominee Trust, Mass DEP, SE 10 3669, raise existing house, construct new house outside of jurisdiction with pool, patio, and walls, modify existing land management plan. Field change request is to conduct Vista management activities.
How are you?
Hi, Matt Lautenberger here from Wilkinson Ecological Design for the Levies. This is our second time presenting this view management plan to you. We have removed the removal of the 2 trees as requested and modified our mitigation to reflect the lesser number of trees coming out.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments? I appreciate that you did listen. So, and that the homeowners listened, which is even more important. So, am I seeing no comments?
I also appreciated the call-outs, the way you made the changes very, very clear.
Okay, then, nothing. I think we can go to a motion.
I move that we accept the field change request for 34 Scattery Road.
Second.
Okay, Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Janet. Aye. Paul.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Catherine, the next.
Okay, we have a notice of intent application at 98 Oyster Pond Furlong, map 13E, parcel 29-11A, for Stephen A. and Haley G. Nadas, Mass DEP, SE 10 3682, construction of a beach access catwalk. The applicant has requested a continuance to July 9, 2025.
Okay, I need,
I move that we continue the hearing on 98 Oyster Pond Furlong to July 9th, 2025.
Second.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
And I say aye. So we're all set on that. Next one, Catherine.
We have a notice of intent application at 186 Strong Island Road, map 13M, parcel 48, for David and Judith Doino, Mass DEP, SE 103724, construction of an 8x18 swimming pool and an expansion of existing patio, seasonal rollout boardwalk, seasonal access steps, installation of mitigation plantings, invasive plant management, and native plant restoration. The applicant has requested a continuance to May 14, 2025.
I move that we continue 186 Strong Island Road to May 14th, 2025.
Second.
All right, Cheryl?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, Catherine, the next.
Okay, we have a notice of intent application at 784 Orleans Road, map 11J, parcel 6-6 for the town of Chatham, Mass DEP, SE 103729, enlargement of boat and trailer parking lot within land subject to coastal storm flowage, relocate historic communication tower within buffer zone to coastal bay.
How are you?
David Clark and Clark Engineering on the behalf of the town of Chatham. So, this project involves two different distinct portions. One is the historic communications tower. It is dangerously close to the top of the bank at the moment, and the town has been working with a contractor to move the tower slightly to the south, about 40 feet, I think, or 30 feet. In discussions with the Marconi and the Historic Commission, their desire is to have the tower in reasonably close proximity for historic reasons to where it was. So this moves it far enough away from the bank that it's going to be a very, very long time before it's in jeopardy again. And unfortunately, it's a lot of significant trees between where it is now and where it's going to be moved to. Even though it's going to be lifted by a crane and placed on its new foundation, the crane can't lift it that high to get up and over the trees. So there's 11 trees that have to come out, and a few of them are significant size oaks. We did not provide a mitigation plan or a planting plan because Department of Natural Resources has been working with a citizens group on the whole triangle piece, and they're coordinating with them as to where these replacement trees are going to go, but they will be put in. It's just we don't have details because it's still being worked out with them. On the second sheet, I show the details of the construction of the footings for the foundations for the tower. Typical open excavation requires a significantly large footprint. And so to minimize that, we're proposing trench boxes around each footing to keep the excavation as tight as possible. All the material that's not needed for backfill will obviously be taken off the site. Found out today that this does need zoning approval. And so Terry Whalen, I don't know if he's on. I don't see him.
I don't see him.
But he'll be taking care of that. So we'll have to continue. And the chair's point at the beginning of the meeting is duly noted. We did our best to flush out all the issues before filing. It didn't obviously work out that way. Similarly, with the second half of the project, which is expansion of the parking, found out yesterday through the zoning officer that there's no provision in the bylaw to allow that portion to go forward. So we're going to have to modify the plan. Well, there's three options. One, there is an exemption in the bylaw for town landings that if this was officially part of the town landing, it would be able, in our opinion, be able to go forward. Second would be to modify it to comply with the building commissioner's interpretation of the bylaw, that there's no alteration within the floodplain. And three, obviously, it would be to withdraw that portion. So we're gonna need some time to resolve that. But we would like to still keep it active as part of this filing to get the commission's feedback, knowing that if we do redesign it, or if we get the favorable determination that it is part of the town landing, any revisions that the commission might want to see based upon the existing design. There are some small trees along the edge. Some of those trees were planted quite a few years ago as part of the mitigation when this was first built. I think it was 2003 or 2004. Those would be temporarily removed and relocated somewhere on the property. There are a number of locust trees along that line. Most, I think all of them are outside the 100-foot buffer to the coastal bank and outside the floodplain. So those aren't any trees that we're calling out as being required for mitigation. So the basic premise of this is, as I stated in the narrative, the parking spaces are a little bit too short. They're finding that in the summertime, the trucks and trailers that are parked there are right on the edge of the gutter line of Riders Cove Road, and it makes it difficult for vehicles pulling out of those spots to get turned and either back up to retrieve their boats or leave the property. So having them just 3 feet back or 4 feet back makes a big difference in that maneuvering room within the Riders Cove Road right away. We're not proposing to pave any of it. The existing shoulder would be retrofitted with porous paving blocks, not concrete blocks, but the grid that you infill with loam, and that would give enough structural support for the back end of the trailers. And then the additional 3 feet would be just for the tail end of the trailer to have a little bit more room before they get into the bank or to the slope. So no increase in impervious surfaces, and so I did provide the drainage calculations as required for non-residential projects. Up until today, or yesterday, we thought this didn't require any agency review, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I'm sorry, Greg Berman is also here from upstairs to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, anybody want to start? Anybody have questions, comments?
I have a couple questions. Is it not allowed, wouldn't it be cheaper to stabilize the bank?
There's just hardly any room there. I think it's less than 8 feet right now from the top of the bank to the.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd start where, wasn't there like a little wooden fence down there or something?
There's a boat rack down there. I don't know if there's any.
I mean, if you started at the boat ramp and worked up, wouldn't that, I don't know, I would just think it would be a lot cheaper than moving the tower.
Hi there. Greg Berman, your Director of Natural Resources. We did explore the idea of stabilizing the bank in that area. Some of the negatives for that would be pushing the erosion off to the sides or the fronting beach. We didn't want to affect the intertidal area. We didn't want to affect the bank on either side that might erode. And, overall, moving back is something that should be encouraged in areas where it can happen. So, the town likes to set a good precedent instead of putting a coastal engineering structure where we might be able to just, pull back and allow the natural processes to occur along that coastal bank for as long as possible.
The other question I had was the parking area. Why can't they just back, I mean, it's lawn area, that's like 4 feet. Why can't they just back up the boat and trailer, and it's only temporary on the lawn area? Wouldn't that be a lot less money for the taxpayers' money?
Well, there is already a grass strip behind
Yeah, they just,
the asphalt berm, and they are taking advantage of that now.
oh, they are?
Yeah, so they.
I didn't see any tire tracks in it, that's why I was wondering.
They try to back as far back as they can, and that asphalt berm is not an impediment for them to get as, so the back of the trailers are into the bank now.
I was just wondering, because that parking area is not a money-generating area. I mean, it's not like if you were charging a toll to park there, it would generate a little money, but that's all I was thinking. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Bob, go ahead.
I had a couple of questions. Yeah, I was thinking the same way Eric was thinking about trying to prevent the erosion along that coastal bank, but I guess we got the answer. But when we move that tower, it looks like you want to remove a pretty substantial oak, 20-inch oak. Is that necessary? Can you just move the tower maybe north a bit? Or, I can't read the,
East of it,
east?
east of the oak, you mean?
Well, if you move it a little bit, I'm not sure of the,
I looked at that too, it'd be a lot of limbing. I think it would be deformed by the time they limbed one side of that oak tree.
you know which one I'm talking about, David?
Yeah, oh, yeah, number 6 is the biggest one.
Yeah, yeah.
And the reason why I'm taking that out is because so much of the canopy has to come out to move the tower there. It'd be better off just to take it out and plant something else. Plus, it's going to continue to grow and might get into the tower in the future.
And then there's an osprey on top of the tower, and so the work would be done.
Yes, Paul mentioned that to me today in my narrative. I said there were no known nests, and I failed to look up. So yeah, I'm a little embarrassed by that. But yeah, we discussed that a little while ago, and the work wouldn't be done till late fall.
Okay. And the locust trees, they're invasive anyway, so, I mean, it wouldn't be a real harm to lose any of those, Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
I just have one add thing. There's an oak, there's a pine right on the edge. Would make sense why you're in there, to remove that pine. There's a pine tree right on the edge of the erosion on the.
Oh, right at the top of the bank?
Oh, yeah, it's like the roots are almost showing. I would think it would make sense to add that pine in.
Okay, Janet?
I have a few questions. This may be a heretic's question, but is this particular tower certified historic? Is there a reason that it has to be preserved?
The property's in the
The
historic.
property is, but is this particular tower,
The structures are what are on the
They are.
National Register.
Having been on the board of the Marconi, I know the answer to that.
it is indeed, so it has to be preserved. Okay, well, just when push comes to, when you're balancing environmental impact versus, I guess, if it, so, the next question is, are these locusts invasive varieties, or not all locusts are invasive, I understand? Do we know? Does it,
Bob says yes.
yeah, they are? The expert, yes.
Well, I mean, Yeah, they tend to regrow off the root systems. And they
All
start-
locusts do that? Because I
Yeah.
was looking it up and it said, black locusts are definitely on the list.
Yeah, they're-
Other varieties are, hard to
Yeah,
say.
they're black locusts.
They are black
Yeah.
locusts.
And they
Okay,
shoot
so
up
they are.
baby trees or,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Okay, they are. Never mind, they're bad boys. So, can you explain to me how assuming you go forward with the parking expansion, so there's that slight berm, you excavate into that by a number of feet and then create a new, do you need a retaining wall then to hold?
We're not proposing any retaining wall. So the existing shoulder, so to speak, once you get past the asphalt berm,
Right,
is at about a 2% slope, and it's about 3 to 4 feet wide. It varies. We're just going to extend that another 3 or 4 feet, that same grade into the bank. So it requires cutting into the slope close to the tower, and regrade that at the slope to 2 to 1. So we're trying to keep the excavation as minimal as possible.
okay. And regrading with the material that has been excavated, or do you need to take more?
Well, we have to stabilize it. When I say regrade, we have to stabilize the slope. So they'll cut into the slope, and then they'll grade that slope to 2 to 1, and then loam and seed that.
And then at the surface level is where the geoblock pavers?
For half that width, we're gonna,
Right, and the other half becomes the new slope, becomes the new bank.
there'll be 3 feet of geoblock and 3 feet of grass,
Okay,
because we're planning on that the grass section won't receive too much tire traffic, but the geoblock will be supporting,
because it's designed to
trailers.
receive.
Support the trailers, yeah.
And so, I got interested in the 60 pages of, stormwater calculations. What is triggering the requirement to do a stormwater report on this project? Is it,
Non-residential.
so
Anything that's
non-residential?
single-family home is supposed to have a stormwater.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So there's a reference there that these geoblock pavers are going to mimic the infiltration and capture of stormwater that is currently in the grass system.
Yes.
So how does that happen if it's partly blocks and partly grass? Just as
Sure.
in an explanation that even
So-
I can understand.
I think the base is gravel.
I can
Yeah, there's
add-
gravel underneath, so it's gonna drain
I can
back.
I can send a cut sheet from the manufacturer. So basically, it is a plastic honeycomb system that it's somewhat thin-walled, and you infill with topsoil. And it's open on the bottom, so it's connected to the gravel underneath.
Okay, so it's not concrete, or it's not
Not concrete,
stone?
no,
Okay.
no.
And that plastic can withstand the weight of the,
Yep.
oh. Yeah, I'd love to, if you could send that at some point, I'd like to learn about that.
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay. So I guess since you have to go to ZBA anyway, you have time to sort out the replacement trees and the species and locations, and you still have some mitigation to do, because you've got whatever, 840 square feet to mitigate.
Yep.
So there's time to do that,
Yep.
which is easier than writing an order saying, it'll happen.
That was, my question was about, the 33 trees that are required for replacement, are they all going to go on this property?
It's over 4 acres, so I think we can find a spot, and that's why we didn't want to, staff didn't want to show something that they're obligated to put in, and it conflicts with what the citizens group's trying to do with the property. So we want to work with them and find appropriate places for the trees.
But probably not where the towers are.
Oh, no,
That
no.
would never hold 33,
Correct,
so.
correct.
And we
Okay.
also wouldn't have them near the top of the bank, like that pine example. We don't want to encourage anything with the fulcrum to destabilize
Yeah,
the bank.
yeah.
Yes, please don't. Okay, anybody else?
I just had one,
Sure.
I couldn't help but notice that all the fishermen, they have ladders that go down, and the way it is now, you know, if someone fell off, it's a soft landing. And you put these in, it's gonna be a little bit of a harder landing if someone falls off the ladder. That's kind of what I noticed there.
All right. On that note,
Yeah,
we are
no idea how long ZBA.
going to have to continue. So, and you have to apply to ZBA. When would you like to continue?
Let's start with 2 months from now.
So that would put us, 1, 2, 3, well, you could do June 25th or July 9th or
July 9 sounds good.
July 9th? Okay. Then could we have a motion to please continue it?
I move that we continue 784 Orleans Road to July 9th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, Catherine, the next.
We have notice of intent at 32 Bog Way, map 6C, parcel 21-7 for Sean and Alice Bartram, Mass DEP, SE 10-3728. The project proposes a tiered retaining wall on a slope above an existing dwelling and lawn. The applicant has requested a continuance to July 9, 2025.
Okay,
I move that we continue 32 Bog Way to July 9th, 2025.
Second.
okay, Cheryl,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
and I say aye. All right, the next,
Okay, we have a certificate of compliance request at 915 Old Queen Anne Road, map 7H, parcel T4 for Molly Logan, Mass DEP, SE 10-3462, view maintenance and invasive species control.
hello again.
David Clark Engineering, and Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax Design. I'll let Teresa do most of the talking, because it was largely her project.
Okay, hi Teresa.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, David. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of Molly Logan and her dad, Michael Brown, who we were working with on this project. So this project dates back to 2021 when we received the original order of conditions. And I believe at that time, the only members who were on the commission that are still on the commission are Janet and Bob. And so this project was basically about managing an area that had been historically managed as a view corridor. The previous owners, Michael Brown at the time was the new owner of the property. Previous owners had had previous orders of conditions allowing them to manage the view corridor. But back at that time, the commission was actually allowing them to manage the view corridor by topping the oak trees. So over the intervening number of years, the oak trees had been topped and topped and topped, and the property changed hands. Michael Brown purchased the property, asked us to take a look at what could be done to manage the vista corridor. And it was clear to us that the oak trees, there were 32 in total, were just in very poor condition, could not continue to be topped, could not continue to be managed in the way they had been managed previously. And because of the way they had been managed previously, there was no interior canopy, there was no low canopy left. So they couldn't even be properly pruned or brought back to healthy trees that would allow us to prune them. Most of them were suffering from fungal diseases. So we came to the commission with a request to manage the property and manage the vista corridor by removing those damaged oak trees. And I don't know if you have a copy of the approved land management and planting plan, but in that area, I have one I can share if you need. We did propose to remove, it was a total of 32 damaged oak trees, which were flagged in the field. And we did meet with the commission on site on a very, very cold day to look at those trees. And then there were a number of scrub oak trees that were in the area that were actually in very good condition. They hadn't been managed. So those were proposed to be left on their own. And then we were replanting to get an understory layer established in this area where none previously existed because of the shading and the way the area had been previously managed. So we planted the area out with a mix of amelanchier. We added more scrub oak into the area. We also planted some clethra, sweet fern, northern bush honeysuckle, bayberry, some fragrant sumac was planted along the edge of the proposed stairs that were installed to allow safe access. The bank was eroding from the footpath that was going down the slope, as well as arrowwood viburnum. And then we planted, or we plugged the area with about 190 Carex pennsylvania, Pennsylvanica, Pennsylvania sedge, oak sedge in this area. So the planting was completed. We've submitted our monitoring reports. The planting was completed, I believe, in 2022. We did the initial work in the winter after we received the order of conditions. And so the plants have been in the ground for 3 years. I actually went out and took a look at it this morning because I had not been on site in a while and wanted to get a sense of how things were looking in there, and things were actually looking very good. Of course, things are slow to leaf out. We've had a cold spring, but everything was budding. Everything was looking healthy. The scrub oaks are doing very well and are returning, beautifully in the area. The only thing I think has changed is that they were proposing a storage box as well as a kayak rack, and only a kayak rack has been installed. The stairs were installed as per the conditions in the order of conditions, and the sides of the stairs were stabilized. I think as Commissioner Del Vecchio had requested us to do, add some additional planting to stabilize the sides of the stairs. So that's just an overview of the project, and it's a different kind of a project because we don't normally come before the commission asking to remove the number of oak trees. In this case, it's hard to even characterize them as trees because they were, as some of you may recall, and we also have photos in our land management plan, they were really stumps with a little bit of growth coming out of them. So we think long-term, the management of this area, we think the management requirements to keep a vista open are going to be very minimal, if any at all. And in addition to that, the commission did require that the vista corridor area be marked in the field. And so in conjunction with David's office, he measured, surveyed the area. We put the steel rods with a safety cap, orange safety cap on them to mark the boundaries of the vista corridor. So those are marked in the field for you to review. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, does anybody have any questions, comments?
Just 2 comments. I do remember this very clearly. It was a real education to go out there in the field when we all went out to see. It was the first time that we had really encountered the long-term impacts of topping of trees. So that was invaluable to see, which is why we have a strict prohibition ever since that day. And the second thing I just want to say is that this is a poster child for how a view corridor should be designed and maintained, so that nothing will need really to be cut or pruned again, and it's healthy and it's a good ecosystem, and it solves multiple problems all at once. So thank you.
Anyone else?
I had a quick question, but I look at the map, though, it was answered, so that's chain link fence is just out of the jurisdiction.
Yes.
Okay.
It
thanks.
is, yes. The chain link fence and all the hardscaping beyond is just outside the 100-foot buffer.
Okay. Agents, do you have any
No,
recommendations on this?
I asked Teresa to do the overview, and I'm in agreement. The application is complete. There was an as-built required. There's one large pine tree down at the end of the walkway that maybe we can speak to the owner about removing. It seems to be kind of on the beach, but at this point, everything's in order, and I'd recommend a approval for a full cert.
Okay. Could we have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 915 Old Queen Anne Road.
Second.
Okay. Bob?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. So that's been approved. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for the thorough
Thank you.
overview.
Thanks.
Okay, Catherine, at this point, next thing.
Okay, next up is a discussion on the modifications to the special regulations for tree replacement size requirements.
Okay, who would like to lead this? Elise, Janet?
I will lead, and I will turn to Janet when I need her great brain. We work together to basically simplify and clarify the layout of these regulations, in particular in reference to trees. I hope you guys all read it, and if you have any comments for changes to what we've done so far, speak up, including suggestions for any kind of rework of the order of things and presentation. We think we really did a good job clarifying the questions that we've had in the recent past about size of trees and what needs to be replaced and how we need to honor them. And we eliminated, I believe, we really clearly eliminated the ability to top trees.
Yeah, we found a stray sentence buried in one of the mitigation provisions that said that, the commission can approve topping of trees. And we went, what is that doing there? So we found that and said, no.
Big strikeout on all of that. So any feedback, comments on improvements or?
Commissioners, any comments, additions, anything? All right, I have a few things.
Good.
Under the definitions for native plants, I wondered if we wanted to say something like straight native, not nativar or cultivar or whatever, going back.
I thought about that. That would be then required to define
What straight native
nativar,
is.
yeah. So we have a list on the website of
Right.
native plants. That's a black and white test. It's either on the list or it's not on the
Right.
list. If it ain't on the list, it's not considered native. And you can make your case to add it to the list if you want, but that makes it much easier. But I think it reminded me that we should occasionally revisit that list and make sure it's up to date and that we've got, because, they are producing more and more cultivar, nativars. I keep seeing them advertised. Do you want
Yes.
native plants? We have native plants. And you're like, I don't know about that one. So,
You can tell often by the name, can't you?
yes, Bob's, if
Yeah.
it's got
Bob
little
gave us
quotes
that
in
little-
italics, it's a nativar.
So if we add that link to the website list,
Yes, that's what,
that would be
Yep.
the action there.
okay.
And then I thought maybe under landscape, I think it's, maybe it's not. I don't know what it's under. Oh, it's coming from this page. Tree removal and cutting. On B, I thought maybe we should absolutely bold tree topping is prohibited, so it stands out.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Same in C, clear cutting of and tree topping for a view is prohibited.
Yep.
I didn't know if there's a percentage that we allow of pruning, if we wanted to say, and I don't know what it would be, but what pruning is considered, is it, and I don't know how to define it, but,
Well, pruning is defined.
yeah,
For reasons that don't generally have anything to do with a view, which is
Right.
what pruning normally would be limited to, for dead, diseased, weak, safety reasons and stuff like that. And then we added, this is from the last time we did this, the view pruning, thinning of branches or understory shrubs to establish the window to improve visibility.
yeah, that's why I asked the
Yeah.
thinning,
Thinning.
what maybe, and I don't know that we can.
I'm not sure we can,
Just-
yeah.
I think it's on a case-by-case thing. Under D, tree removal standards, I wondered if we wanted to say something about non-native, we talk about invasive,
Yeah,
but non-native, because we've seen so many people come before us about saying they want to remove
Yep.
it because it's not native.
And,
But at
and,
times.
and if it's not a tree, we often, we consider removal of invasive vegetation to be a mitigation measure.
Right.
So that's why I was asking about these locusts, because it started me thinking about whether the replacement values should be the same for a native, like a black oak, as they would be for a black locust. It doesn't seem right that they
No.
both get the same
I agree.
replacement value, but we're trying to keep this simple, so that so that it's easily understandable.
Yeah, the only reason I asked was that we've had people come before us saying they're removing, 30 oaks because they're not native.
Right.
Or something, and they do still offer something.
Right, they're not
So-
nothing, right.
Yeah,
But they're
so I
not, they're not, they're not the same as natives.
somehow,
Well, that's fun. So we, as you may remember, when we first did this, the tying it to the size of the tree is a stand-in for replacing the biomass. But some biomasses are more valuable than others. So the only thing I could think of is doing an add and a subtract or something, so that a +1 for a native tree. So if you had to do a 2-to-1, you'd have to do 3-to-1, and a -1 for an invasive, so you don't have to, and then a non-native is just, I don't know, I don't
well,
know how else to make it so that it's easily workable.
I didn't know if we wanted something like a sentence in there that said that non-native trees can still offer some benefits to the environment. I don't know. Because we've had so many people come before us wanting to remove non-natives, saying, well, they're not native, and that's why we're going to take them all out.
Well, they've been adhering to the replacement ratios.
Right, they
Whether or
have,
not, irregardless of whether they're native, non-native, or invasive.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, from a philosophical point of view, better to distinguish and make, you have to replace more to replace the more valuable biomass and less for the, but, I don't know of any easy way of doing that that's, doesn't end up with a big, complicated spreadsheet kind of approach to things.
And my only other thing, which I mentioned before the meeting, was I wondered whether we want trees to be its own section, not, I know we've highlighted vegetation management, landscape, and tree removal standards. I wondered if we wanted 5.02, which we probably already have, but that's just tree removal standards, so that it really stands out and it doesn't get lost. So I don't know if we want to, and I'd love to hear other commissioners chime in, but that was just a thought to make it, you put all this work in to make it really obvious that trees are separate from mitigation and trees deserve their own section, because we do now to have that tree ordinance, which it precipitated us redoing this anyway. And it would sort of highlight the importance of the trees, just like mitigation is its own section. But I do like that you pulled it out, at least, and made it a little more obvious, the trees, and not buried. So,
Yeah, because we've gotten ourselves tangled up a couple
We
times
have.
in the distinction between a mitigation requirement and a tree replacement requirement, trying to
We have.
keep it clear.
so that was just a thought, and I don't know what anybody else thinks, or whether this is more than enough, which I think it is. I just wonder if we want to make it so it's more obvious. We have a few more hearings on this anyway.
Some trees that are invasive, like the locusts, some poplars, if you cut them down, you don't get rid of the roots, and they'll just shoot up multiple trees.
Yeah.
So maybe a mitigation on something like that would be that they would have to treat it. They would have to treat new saplings coming up for a period of time.
True. Or have to remove the roots, but
That-
sometimes the roots.
Those roots can go
help to-
40 feet.
Yeah.
I know. Okay.
Huh.
Anybody else? thoughts?
Got something small, Karen.
Oh, good.
On landscape standards, E. No pesticides, fertilizers, or shouldn't it read, new permanent irrigation is permitted?
It should. Oh, yeah, right there.
In E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should say new. Which, or we could say only temporary irrigation is allowed, but no permanent, no new permanent would work.
We could add the temporary sentence. We could add
Yeah.
only temporary irrigation
Yeah,
allowed.
that's an idea, is to
Let's
add
do
that.
What is it?
Only temporary irrigation is allowed
For new plantings, yeah.
for new plantings.
We're adding that to
Or
the COC
should we
anyway,
add
aren't we?
for 3 years? Because we're having an issue with people removing the temporary.
For as long as the permit's allowed.
Well, the permit, sometimes they don't come to us until 10 years later, and they could have had temporary in there sort of permanently.
I don't understand.
So maybe we want to add 3 years, because that's what the order says is.
Well, but
for-
that assumes they have an order of conditions, so
Oh. Well, but,
we should put that in the orders,
yeah.
that after 3 years, temporary irrigation has to be pulled. I mean, I think
Okay.
we've implied that, but, maybe,
Aren't we adding that to the COC, though?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it probably doesn't need to be in the regulation, and if we get good about enforcing it in orders and COCs, that you gotta take that,
Okay.
take those hoses out.
Anybody have anything else? I mean, this is the
Wouldn't hurt to
first
remind them
hearing.
twice.
This is the first hearing, and we have, what, 2 more for this before we can vote it in. So you have time to consider it and possibly come back with other comments, questions. Thank you very much, both of you. It's,
Can I ask, the landscapers and horticulturalists over there,
hey,
your question
I
has
am no
got.
horticulturist, but
Yeah,
I'll,
but, yeah, but your question is a good one and got me thinking. I'm now sitting here thinking about when we tell people to pull out invasive, so that,
well, usually they just cut down.
but trees, invasive trees generally and locusts in particular will resprout.
Poplars.
And
we could-
unpoplars will too.
Oh, yeah, they call them silver leaves for short nickname, but also poplars. They kind of look like an oak leaf. They grow like crazy. And they will sprout many times. They'll sprout right out of the stumps, too.
that's what I-
So, but woody vegetation that's invasive, that won't do that, so cutting that down and leaving the roots to decay is sufficient.
Well, it all depends on what kind of wood.
Except for knotweed, of course, because,
Yeah,
that doesn't.
some do and some, most stay down, but some just grow, a lot of them just grow again.
Yeah, well, that's why we have that condition, at least for mitigation areas, that people have a perpetual requirement to check them and pull anything that's coming up, that's sprouting, coming from across somewhere, and coming up. But these trees are making me think, cutting these trees down isn't necessarily gonna solve the problem, right?
No. Maybe we need to have something saying in perpetuity for trees, invasive trees, that they have to be treated or.
Yeah, they have to treat the new
We can do that.
shoots coming up for a while to make sure it's killed by the roots and everything.
So, but, and even, just make clear, even with that, they still have to replace them,
Yes.
because there is still,
Even if
there is
they're,
still some
even in-
ecosystem benefits that,
but even invasive trees?
Yes,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think,
Look.
because there's still some.
There's still biomass. A tree is a tree, whether it's an invasive tree or not.
I don't mean the other word you said, non-native. I thought it would be a difference between invasive and non-native, because don't we allow
Yes.
mitigation projects where they can get rid of invasive?
Well, I-
That's that's
Yeah.
where the question is coming from. We require people to get rid of invasive, so we don't require them to replace it.
But if it's an invasive tree, maybe it should be replaced maybe 1-to-1 and a non-native 2-to-1 and a regular tree, a native tree 3-to, I don't know.
So devil's advocate, how is that different than the invasive plants?
Well, we're talking about trees versus,
I'm-
it's a different, it's a whole different entity
But
to
I'm
me.
thinking of the argument that was brought before us on trees a while ago. We should really make sure the wording is clear.
Yeah, but a tree is a tree for habitat. It's
Yeah.
still a
Right.
tree, whether it's a locust, or the silver ones, which is what I have growing in my garden because we can't get rid of them. They're still trees. Birds still nest in them. They still offer protection and habitat. Whether they're native, birds don't care if they're, except for food, they don't necessarily care for those kind of things. So a non-native and a native tree are equally as important
Right.
in that regard, I think. They don't burn as well in your wood stove all the time, but,
Yeah, you don't want to burn poplar.
no.
Because that poplars can be,
I don't have a wood
it's actually poisonous.
Is it really?
Locust is good. It's
Locust
about
is
the best
good.
firewood you can burn.
I don't know, so maybe we need to think about, what's good about this is that it's starting us thinking about how we can really continue to beef it up and
Well, a lot of,
hopefully make our jobs easier going forward.
so if you double down on the replacements, a lot of these properties are pretty small. I mean, where are they gonna put
I
all
know.
these trees, you know? Maybe your tree fund.
Yeah. I don't know, I guess it takes a little more thought. Does anybody who's online have any comments about what we've been discussing? Because I do see blue flags to call you out. I think Teresa got off. Okay,
So this is just trees. This has nothing to do with standard trimming.
No.
I would like
Right.
to get into
Just-
that subject one of these times.
standard trimming of
Vegetation
trees.
management and landscape this first section brings that in. So I think Karen's point is well taken. Maybe we should pull trees out of that and have vegetation and landscape management as a section, tree removal as a section, replacement, and then the general mitigation.
Yeah, only because, as you
different.
just said, the first section has a lot more to it than just trees, and we're not really dealing with that right now. The
What,
charge.
vegetation trimming we're not dealing with? I would love to deal with that.
Yeah, well, we're gonna deal with everything. Okay, you've just
You
volunteered.
just volunteered, Eric.
Did you realize? But,
So look at subsection 3 is landscape standards. So there's
there you
I mean,
go.
this is old, stuff that we've had in here for a long time, we haven't talked about or looked at, so it probably could use, this is the time to look at it and say, this either makes
What,
no sense.
right now?
No,
no,
for the
no.
next one,
Oh,
before
we'll
we
do
bring
that
it back.
next one.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is the right time.
So for the next round, we'll pull the trees out.
Pull the
into a
trees out,
Separate section, make all those other changes. Think about the ideas that have come out, especially the mitigation we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And we'll take another crack at it.
And I think that would allow, after this section's been dealt, with, the trees have been dealt with, then we could go to the vegetation management and landscape standards. And Eric, maybe, and Bob, you two could get involved with that, since you have a lot of knowledge on it, if you want. But first, we need to deal with the first area that we decide to tackle. So, do we need a motion to continue it? We do, but to,
Continue the discussion.
So,
yeah, continue,
May
we have
7th
to
or
have a
May
date.
14th?
To when?
May 7th or May 14th?
Why don't we do May 14th? That gives 3 weeks.
Okay?
So I think that probably would be good, and going forward, it will be, they'll put it into the May 14th meeting, on Teams, hearing on Teams, and everybody can see it there, rather than having to send it out each time. So, but
I
any,
emailed you that. I emailed it to you.
any other comments or anything we can deal with at that meeting? Just like we did today. We'll get this, read it over again, and go forward. So if we could have a motion to
bet.
continue.
I move that we continue the discussion on modifications to the special regs for tree replacement to May 14th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Cheryl,
Aye.
and I say aye. Okay, the next, Catherine, please.
Next, we have minutes to approve for March 12, 2025, March 26, 2025, April 2nd, 2025, and April 9th, 2025.
Okay, now, I forgot to look and make sure everybody was present at each one.
I was absent April 2nd.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was absent March 12th.
Yes, and so I think we're going to have to deal with them one by one, is really where I'm coming from. So, March 12th, let's do that one first. Any modifications to that minutes? Okay, if we could have a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes for March 12th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, Cheryl,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Bob,
Abstain.
and I say aye. Okay, the March 26th. It looks like everybody was present, so we can do that one. Everybody can go for it, so let's have a motion. Does anybody have any modifications to it?
I got one small one here.
Okay,
I'm
good.
full of small modifications today. Let's see.
Well, it wouldn't be the same.
498 500 Shore Road, the second paragraph, last sentence. Matt is spelled M-A-T-T, not M-A-T.
I caught that in the first part and missed it there.
Yeah, he's through out with one.
Oh, representative, there's another one.
Yeah,
He's not
He
a,
does spell Matthew with one T.
yeah, that's why.
Oh, he
said
does?
that.
oh,
Oh,
I looked that up
Yeah,
because I
really?
wasn't sure.
with one P.
okay.
oh, so we
Thank you,
should,
Crystal.
yeah.
Leave it alone.
And I made a correction to it earlier, so I have to go back and, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, but we were all here on April 9th as well.
Oh, true. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, why don't we do April 9th as well? Any modifications, comments to April 9th?
Hang on, I gotta accept
I
all
am
changes,
looking
stop,
to see,
April 9th. Okay,
I didn't see any modifications made. Anybody? Okay.
yeah, there's a question. The motion to vote Karen, to
Did
represent
Elise make the
the,
motion?
Oh,
who made the motion?
yeah, I did write that.
I did, I thought.
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no reason that she wouldn't have.
I just wanted to make sure that we had the right motions.
All right, accept changes,
Okay.
stop.
So we can have a motion for those two.
I move that we approve the minutes for March 26, 2025, and April 9th, 2025.
Second.
Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, we just have April 2nd left. Any modifications, comments, questions?
April 2nd, hang on.
I'm looking for mats that have just one T. It looks like they do. I thought I'd checked that previously, but I wanted to make sure. Anybody?
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Silence.
This one looks,
You good, Janet?
I think it's good. Hang on, I don't see anything, I didn't change it. All right,
I move we accept the minutes for April 2nd, 2025.
Second.
Okay, Bob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Janet?
aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Abstain.
And I say aye. Okay, Catherine, the next.
Okay, since it's the third meeting of the month, we have our violation update. I updated the commission with the sheets for the updated violations. There's a positive movement on the violation letters and notices that have been sent out. We've had a lot of response and a lot of
Yay.
the homeowners are working to fix the violations. As we did not advertise specific addresses, we cannot discuss, but if someone wants to discuss any future meetings, please let Crystal or me or Paul know, and we can put it on the agenda and have it advertised.
Yep. All right. And so we need, we don't have to have a motion for this, it's just an update. Okay, we have one more motion.
And I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Cheryl,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
and I say aye. Thanks, guys.